In the United States, 44% of people admit that money is the biggest source of stress in their lives. And this is a really sad statistic, but to be honest, it doesn't surprise me based on the financial habits that most people have. Now, if you are well off financially, you could probably thank your parents or maybe your grandparents or a mentor like that. But if you're not financially wise, don't worry whatsoever. And in most cases, it's really not your fault because it's not like they teach you things like this in school. But one of the best things you can do to have less stress around your money is by having a clear plan of what you're going to do on payday. And most people end up getting their paycheck and spending it on something that is a want rather than a need, and then they're in this constant cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. So if that sounds remotely familiar, guys, this video is for you. I'm going to give you my 7 steps to follow on payday to help you out with your financial situation. Now, of course, guys, before I get into step number 1 here, I just have to say that I am not a financial advisor, and this is not any kind of personalized financial advice, and this video is for entertainment purposes only. That being said, let's get into step number 1 on payday, which is none other than pay yourself first. If you only take one thing away from this video, guys, I want you to take this right here, which comes from the teachings of a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. If you've never read this book before, it's a fantastic book for somebody who is completely new to saving money and setting aside money. So if you don't know anything about money, it's a great place to start. But I'm going to teach you arguably the most important lesson from that book right now. So the whole concept here is that when most people get paid, they pay everybody else first before they pay themselves. And what I mean by that is people will pay for their groceries, they'll pay their utility bill, they'll pay their landlord or the mortgage company, they pay everybody else out there, and then if there's a little bit of money left over at the end, they may consider paying themselves. So this is a totally different school of thought where before you pay anybody else, before you pay your mortgage and things like that, you set aside a percentage of your paycheck and you pay yourself first. Now, what you do with that money depends on, where you're at financially. And we're going to cover some of those steps later on, but for now, you're just having this goal of setting aside a percentage of your paycheck. And for those out there who say, I can't do this whatsoever, I challenge you to start with just 1%. Set aside 1% of your paycheck every single week. And then once that becomes easy, then make it 2, 3, 4, 5% and go up from there. So most financial experts recommend setting aside anywhere from 10 to 20% of your money for your savings as well as investments, but that's of course a lofty goal for most people. So I would encourage you to start with 1 or 2% and see how that feels. And your initial goal here while doing this is to set up an emergency fund with $1,000. It's probably going to take a couple weeks to build this up, but that's going to be your first goal. So after you pay yourself first, step number 2 is going to be paying off debts. So I know you may be excited about investing your money in cryptocurrencies or the stock market or something like that, but you have to make sure your own financial house is in order before you begin investing in other ventures. Because the unfortunate truth here is whatever you're paying in interest to your credit card company in most cases is going to be a lot higher than what you could potentially earn from the stock market or something like that. Now, speaking of that all-important emergency fund, that brings us to today's video sponsor, which is Port. So a couple weeks back, Port approached me about sponsoring a video, and I decided to check the app out myself and give that account a shot. What really drew me into this app was the overall design and the really cool looking debit cards, as well as the above average APY on their accounts. While building your emergency fund, you also want to make sure that you're getting the most interest possible for your money. And in a low interest rate environment that we are in today, it may not seem important, but at the end of the day, any amount of return you can get on the money sitting there is better than nothing. So thus far, I've been very impressed with what Port is offering here. There's no minimum balance to get started and no monthly fees of any kind. Plus, you never have to visit an in-person branch. In addition, Port is also focused on helping their members to support causes that are important to them. And this is done through their Door to Change program. Basically, every time you swipe your card, a donation will be made to the charity that you select in the app, and the donation doesn't cost you anything. So if you want to learn more about Port, click that link down in the description below at the end of the video. So now back to the conversation of debt, because a lot of people don't really like talking about it because most people are embarrassed if they are in debt, but the truth is most people out there have some form of debt. So when it comes to actually paying off your debt, there's two primary schools of thought that people follow. The first one is paying off the highest interest debt first, which is going to make the most sense financially. However, if your highest interest debt is also your highest balance, you might get discouraged by doing that. So another school of thought that I like as well is paying off your debts from smallest to largest. So maybe you had a store credit card with a $200 balance. It might be a good idea just to knock that debt out of the way, just to get motivated and basically have that satisfaction of zeroing out one of your debts. So whatever school of thought makes more sense to you, you're going to want to make sure that on payday, you're thinking about directing some of that money towards paying off any high interest debts that you may have. However, you don't have to necessarily pay off all of your debts. For example, I think auto debt is okay in most cases, as well as mortgages. But we're mostly talking about that personal debt or things that have interest rates above 10%. Alrighty guys, step number 3 here is an easy one, and that is to go to a gas station and fill up your gas tank. So if you tuned into one of my recent videos, we learned that the best day statistically to purchase gas is going to be on a Wednesday. So that's typically not going to be on your payday, but if you want to get it on the cheapest day, we did find out that is on Wednesday. But regardless, on payday, I always think it's a great idea to go fill up your tank and be full of gas. Because at the end of the day, you need to have a means of transportation in order to work unless you are working from home. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard friends of mine who spent all of their money on payday and then they found out, oh my gosh, I have no gas in my car, and then they had to put it on a credit card. So I always like the idea of getting your paycheck and then filling up your gas tank. That way you know you have a full gas tank, whether it's for the next week going forward, for your commute to work, or weekend activities. So after that, step number 4 is go to the grocery store and buy some groceries. Guys, this is oftentimes the number one thing that young people can do to save money because we are far too addicted to the conveniences of mobile food delivery. So rather than going home and then finding out you have no groceries and paying $50 to get food delivered, spend that money at the grocery store and you'll get a much bigger bang for your buck. In fact, the average takeout meal is marked up 300% or more. And let's be honest, guys, if you're paycheck to paycheck, you simply cannot afford that luxury until you figure out your finances overall. So that is what I recommend. Hit the grocery store and also try to only buy items that are on sale. So after that, step number 5 is going to be budgeting your entertainment expenses for the week ahead. So my favorite system for this is an entertainment envelope where you basically take out the cash and you stick it in that envelope, and if you spend it that week, that's going to be the total amount of money that you have. Or if you don't spend it all, you can roll it over to the next week. And for most people, this entertainment category is that money pit where all of their money just magically disappears. So having a budget for your overall entertainment is very important. Now, as far as the amount of money that this is, I've always liked $100 per week to start with, but that's going to be based on your lifestyle and so many different factors. But I think $100 per week is, generally speaking, a good entertainment budget for most people. Now, the reason I recommend getting gas and getting groceries on or around payday is because it's good to get the essentials out of the way first. That way, you know how much money is left over. So by filling up your gas tank and filling your house with food, you know you have enough gas in your tank to get to work, and you have enough food to make lunch, so it sets you up for the week ahead, so you're not going to have to spend money on, fast food, hopefully, or different things like that due to improper planning. So after that, step number 6 is going to be considering investing your money. Now again, this is all going to depend on each person's financial situation, because if you're still paying off a lot of high interest debt, it most likely makes sense to just continue doing that rather than investing your money. A general rule of thumb is that the stock market returns on average 8 to 10% per year. So if you have 15 to 20 or 25% interest debt, it doesn't make sense to invest your money if you're paying far more than that in interest than you would likely make from returns. But if you are ready, this is when you may want to consider directing a portion or percentage of your paycheck towards investments. Now, the way you go about this is totally up to you. You should probably look into the 401k if you are full-time employed, since most employers offer a 401k match, or some do at this point in time, where you're able to get extra kick-in based on how much money you put in. Beyond that, another great option is the Roth IRA retirement account if you're looking to invest for super long term, or if you're just looking to invest for shorter term goals, your taxable brokerage account is also a great option. So then after that, step number 7 is consider donating to a charity. And again, this is no pressure of any kind here, guys, because a lot of people are just financially not in a position where they're able to give. And it reminds me of the saying on the airplanes there, where you have to secure your own mask first before you secure someone else's. And financially, a lot of people, most people have not secured their mask, and so they're not ready to help other people. But if you are somebody who is, in a good situation financially, and you may have surplus income, at the end of the week, this may be a perfect opportunity to consider, donating some of that money and supporting different charities. And of course, if you want to do this at no additional cost to you, you could use Port and take advantage of that charitable giving component, and then every time you're shopping, you're automatically donating to a charity of your choice. So anyways, guys, there you have it. That's going to wrap up this video. Those are my 7 steps on Payday in order to hopefully improve your overall financial situation. Most people out there follow exactly 1 step on Payday, which is to just spend all their money. And that's why most people are in paycheck to paycheck and stressed out about their money. So I sincerely hope that, even if one of these steps resonates with you, it helps you to have less stress around your finances and more overall security. Once again, guys, thank you to Port for sponsoring this video. If you have any interest in checking out their Sleek account or that charitable giving feature, anything like that, guys, use that link down in the description below. And I certainly do appreciate your use of that link, just because they did sponsor this video, and I would love to work with them again in the future. So if you do decide that this is a good fit for you, please consider using that link. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you have not seen me before, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for future notifications. Drop a like if you got value from this video. Share it with a friend who may be paycheck to paycheck as a bit of a wake-up call, and I hope to see you in the next video.